Hi guys, this is Kyra, and today I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
What's up, guys? Rob here, Front Row Live Entertainment. I am here in the studio with Kyra Machida, and I'm so excited to be talking to you. I want to dive in and just talk about you kind of discovering your sound, your voice. You've been singing since you were very young, so that evolution process and like growing up as you're kind of changing vocally, and what was that process like for you?
Well, I grew up in a very diverse family. My mom always listened to American music, Western music. I grew up in Japan, but my mom's always been very, just follow your dreams and very supportive of everything that I do. And so when I was 14, I was signed with a label in Japan, and I started my training from 14 to 18, 19, I'd like to say. And it was a very intense, choreography, vocally, and a lot of building that foundation that led me to, create what I create right now.
Yeah.
So I thought it was like, I think that building that foundation, not just choreography and vocally, but I think mentality too, it's just really helped me have this era that I'm in right now. Yeah.
Talk to me about that whole process though, because those schedules are intense. It's rigorous rehearsals that you have to go through.
Yeah.
And doing it at such a young age, like how did you learn to get used to that process? Or did you ever get used to that process?
It definitely took me a while to get used to it, and it was lonely at first, but then the more I dive into it, the more it made sense. And I was only 14, so it took me a while to understand what's going on and people that I'm dealing with. But I think it's just like more so fun for me to be able to learn a new skill and kind of move your body in a way that it's like your body doesn't go to naturally.
Right.
So I think breaking that comfort is really, really fun. And obviously the schedule was intense. But I think there's something about that really bend and kind of molded my mind in a way that I never thought I would go.
Yeah.
So it really, really helped me, honestly. As crazy as it sounds, it's just like I'm really, really happy that I went through it.
Was that experience what really led you to kind of discovering the type of sound and the kind of music that you wanted to pursue moving forward?
Absolutely. And I think it's also, I grew up listening to Imogen Heap, and I love her harmonies and all the, placement that she does, and I thought it was really cool. But I also listened to this artist in Japan called Namie Amuro, which she now deleted all her music right now, which is crazy. But
Damn.
She was an icon to me, and she was the first concert that I watched, and I was like, holy shit, like, can I cuss?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I was like, holy shit.
That's always the moment. Everybody's like,
I know.
oh.
I was like, can I cuss? But I saw her and I was like, I want to be just like that. She
Yeah.
dances, crazy. She always dances in heels, and I think that's a big influence in me too. And I'm always like, okay, it's everything got to be in heels, and also elevates me as my attitude and my personality that I bring in every song. So it definitely helped me, with the sound that I discovered throughout the process of that.
So that really kickstarted for you. And like when you go and kind of learn to understand your voice, was the training what taught you to understand your voice and how you can kind of elevate it every single time? Or was it you trying to, go back home doing covers? Like, what was that process like?
A lot of the songs that I picked in the training was mostly a little bit more not like simple songs. And whenever I am at home and just discovering sound on my own and just challenging myself and like riffs and all this stuff, and I remember just like sitting in my computer, I'm just like trying to get the correct riff and like trying to get that correct tone, and I always get irritated. I threw my laptop one time when I was like 15. I remember that. I was just like curled up in my bed and I cried because I couldn't get that correct riff. But a lot of them, as much as I would like to say, training did a lot of impact on my sound and, the way I sing. I think a lot of them was something that I discovered when I'm home.
Yeah.
And just like, doing my little vocals and covers at home. Yeah.
Now you fast forward and then you drop your debut single Connect,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, for an artist, like it's a scary moment, right? Like
Yeah.
the debut single, the debut album is like the most scariest part or at times
Yeah.
because it's like I'm exposing myself to an audience that I'm unaware of, right?
Yeah.
Like, so what was it about Connect that really told you or spoke to you and said like, this should be that introduction?
I feel like when I first moved out here, I felt so alone and just like stripped out of my own comfort, and I felt so boxed in my own thoughts that it just kept on going in this circle and never-ending loop that I just couldn't get out of.
Yeah.
And I had this kind of moment to myself of just like, okay, when is it gonna end, and what is the purpose in this? And I kept on trying to find the roots of what is it that's causing me to be like this. And I feel like being exposed in the industry at a young age and being around, you know, the business at a young age, and I've coming from also a very conservative country, I
Yeah.
felt so boxed, and I felt like I was being molded into this person that I didn't feel like I was wanting to be. And Connect was the first song that I felt like, okay, I think I know where I'm going, and this is the problem. And Connect, when I was writing Connect, it was, you know, I was writing with Julia Gartha, who's an amazing writer that I work with a lot, and she helped me kind of navigate what is it that I want to tell myself more than like, this is my story.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a song that is a reminder to myself to be like connecting back to myself. And
Yeah. Back to the roots.
yeah, back to the roots. And the roots is also like you know, an interesting aspect because I grew up in the countryside in Japan where there's literally nothing. It takes about like 30 minutes to get to the closest grocery store by
Wow.
car. So just nature, purely
Yeah.
nature. And when I moved to Tokyo when I was 14, I was by myself. I was just like, this is concrete jungle. This is insane. Like I felt like I was seeing flying cars,
Like
although
I have
it wasn't.
neighbors.
Yeah, I have neighbors. There's people walking around. There's people dressed in a certain way, and it just opened up my mind. But then I was disconnected from the nature side of myself, and that when I was writing Connect, I see like a very concrete like robot and connecting back to this nature where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that visually, when I write songs, I see things visually. So when I hear that sound, I was like, okay, I see a robot, which is me, and I'm trying to go back to nature, which is, it's hard to force something so, you know, robotic to something so natural. And there's
Yeah.
something that was like so cool about that.
That must have been an interesting writing process, though.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, was it the idea that really kickstarted it for you? And what were those like first couple lines that you wrote?
I mean, like, I came in fully just out of my mind, and I was just not feeling good. And I feel like you really have to be in a certain mindset to write a song.
Yeah.
And I remember that day I came in, I was just like, I felt so gloomy, and I felt it's just like a cloud over my head, and I just couldn't figure it out, and I just couldn't recognize myself anymore. And that was the first line, don't recognize myself. Like, feels like I'm running back and forth with you. And that first line, I had a very like clear person in my mind
Yeah.
of where I was the happiest, and this person that I couldn't reach, and I don't think I will ever be able to reach. And I felt like I was trying my best to channel this person, you know. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I feel like I'm forcing myself to go back and forth with this person. Which one is it?
Yeah.
And that was the first line that really sparked, and it's just like, in a way that's just like accepting that that's just how it goes. You could bring a piece of that girl that you once loved, but you got to move on and like create foundation with the new ones. So
That's hard. That's a hard realization to like come up with, especially early on.
Yeah.
And you know, I love that you pretty much like were very vulnerable from the beginning with your audience.
so scary.
That is scary.
Because I was not allowed to. I feel like, I'm not saying I'm not allowed to, but I think growing up in that culture of just like people being so strong and,
Yeah.
you know, clock in, clock out.
can't show that
You
side.
can't show that. And so being vulnerable is something that would come off as weakness. So, and I grew up very, you know, my father's a very strong supportive man. And we've always been like, okay, never show your weak side. That's for babies. We don't do that out here. So coming out with the first song being so vulnerable was just like, I cried the day I really released everything. So
I feel like after like jumping that hurdle, I feel like anything is possible now.
Yeah.
I feel like it's probably a lot easier now to open up and be vulnerable and get deeper into these like emotions or just situations that you eventually want to talk about. But what was it like? Because you do mention that it's like it's kind of frowned upon back home. So showing it to your family, showing it to your dad, like was that something that like was that even more scarier for you than like releasing it to an audience?
I think not really, surprisingly. I feel like my dad is the type of person that won't say anything at all to you, but he knows what's going on and you don't even have to tell him anything and he just gets it, but he just doesn't want to say it.
Yeah.
My parents are just like, oh, well, initially when he heard it, he thought it was about someone. And then when I explained to him it was about myself, and he was just like, oh. He just couldn't process it because like to him or like to my culture, it's just like we don't do emotional stuff.
Yeah.
We don't really we see mental health and all that stuff as like a myth to us. So he was just like I feel like it also gave him a clarity of the way I think, and also I could be sensitive sometimes, which I never bring it up. So in a way, it kind of deepened their relationship.
That's cool.
So that was really cool.
Because I feel like coming and having a conversation like that is a lot harder than actually just like listen to my song, Dad.
Yeah, we never talk about stuff like that. I feel like I would start laughing mid-conversation because it's so unnatural. And till this day, I do have a hard time a little bit where being vulnerable to someone and I just like start laughing. So yeah.
It's your superpower. It's just like kills the bad moods, right? Like it's just the icebreaker.
Yeah.
So you have this song Connect, you release it. You opened up to this audience that a whole new audience for you.
Yeah.
You move forward, you release more music. Did the process of releasing music become easier to you now that like you got that first taste, like you pulled out that Band-Aid and you were fine?
No.
It got harder.
I think it became harder, but in a way that it's like it became easier for me to process it. The duration of me going through it was shorter now. It became shorter, but I remember when I first released it, I was just like emotional wreck, just like up and down. I was fine and happy that it's out, but then after that I'm like, oh my God, I've been working on this for so long. What is going on?
Yeah.
And it's just like the next day I'm happy, the next day I'm like, I hate this song. I never want to listen to it. And I'm back to being like, this is the greatest song I've ever written. I'm a genius.
Yes, you are.
And then the next day I'm like, no, I could do better. So, but it became easier. I wouldn't say I won't cry about it, I won't be happy about it, but it's just like the duration of it, I process it a lot easier now. So that's better on my end.
Let's dive in and talk about Speed, because I cannot get that melody out of my head. It is such an incredible and catchy tune, but it also has a deeper meaning for you as well, growing up and going back to your father. So, talk to me about that song, and like, it was completely different from Connect.
Yeah,
so,
it's a lot different.
Did your writing process start differently? Did the creative process start differently with this one? Your vocals, were they different this time around?
Definitely a little bit more different. Connect is a very airy, softer side of me, and I was, doing a lot of harmonies and all that, and I feel like Speed is a little bit less of that. There's still some harmonies to it, but I think it's a little bit more fun and playful that I loved so much, and also really big influence on my childhood as well. My dad is a street car racer, so I grew up, like I mentioned, I grew up in the countryside, and we have this mountain that it's known and notorious for drifting down.
For drifting, yeah.
Yeah, so my dad would always drift down from there, and I'll be in the passenger seat, and I will be...
What a cool, way to just, I'm 4 years old sitting on the seat, just drifting with my dad.
My mom would always get mad at my dad. She hates it when I'm always in the car with him, because she knows that he's gonna like speed. And,
Yeah.
you know, I remember going down the mountains. I would be the commentator. I would like I'm just a kid, and I'm like, oh, he's going left, like he's turning left, and you know, all that. I would do that growing up, and he would just like laugh and like focus, and he would tell me all the stories and crazy stories about him and his friends, and he was in a same group as this guy who's known, it's like a drift king. His name's DK, and everybody loves him out here, which I was like really surprised, because my dad's like, I grew up with him and we did the same thing together. I was in the same group of drifting crew. And so when I think that adrenaline that I got growing up, and just like till this day, me and my dad would go driving and he would just like speed, and you know. But something about that kind of related to love and how I feel about someone, and that really pulled a big inspiration to my music with speed.
There's a single that's in the works right now for spring, Nasty.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've got to experiment with the music so far, and you're prepping for this new release, what kind of direction do you take on this new track?
On this new track, it's definitely a lot different than any of my songs that I've released with Connect and Speed and Shibuya. It's just like kind of more club, and has an element of electronic sound.
Oh, nice.
And which I really love, but I never was able to really put in any of my song without feeling like, okay, this is kind of like not there. I had like I mentioned, I have this specific persona that I have, and would she listen to that and be like, I feel hot and confident listening to it. And when I heard Nasty, like Tim whipped out this production, this stabby sound, and I was like I want to dance and feel dirty and sweaty in this, you know. And when I was writing Nasty, I just kept on remembering that moment. I go to a lot of underground clubs in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And
that's the big scene.
It's the big scene, and also that moment of training, and I felt like I was being a rebel, and I was not supposed to be there, obviously. But there's something about that experience that like really stuck with me, and just like being so sneaky, and I felt like a black cat, where it's just like sneaking out from the back door and just like doing whatever she feels like doing.
Right.
And that's how I felt when I was writing Nasty.
So Nasty sounds like an alter ego. Like
Very
it sounds
much.
like this is going to be the alter ego.
Yeah, I think I obviously am different from the song Nasty, like personality wise, but I know deep down Nasty, the girl who sings Nasty, and the character I play is who I really am.
Yeah.
And how I put out myself. So yeah.
I'm excited to see how your music continues to develop, especially when we start to like get bodies of work from you, like, because I feel like you're really going to dive into like these pretty crazy storylines that, you know, it's like either something that you dream of or like some kind of, I don't know. I feel like there's going to be so many different characters that we're going to get to experience with your music.
Absolutely.
So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I guess like to wrap this all up is, you know, during this process of like going through the camp of training, and then, you know, figuring out yourself as an artist and being able to release this music, what do you feel has been like the biggest challenge, and, you know, what has allowed you to overcome it?
Definitely was more of like a mental battle within myself, and also being okay with what is, you know, me pushing too much and what is not. And being in that training really made me be more perfectionist. And in my craft, I've learned to take something that I thought it was ugly and take it as being like, okay, this part is something that is beautiful on its own, and I have to find a way to kind of put a little bit of clear, nicer coat to, you know, make it better. And definitely I've always struggled with that, and that limit my creativity in some sets. And I've learned to just become honest with myself throughout that process, you know, the training. And something that really molded me differently was just working with other people. There's so many different ideas, and I'm always like, I know I want to get there, and that's the only way I'm going. But learning to work with other amazing people and, you know, being in this space, I learned to just open up and not just, you know, with creativity, but my personality and also like my comfort. And I was like, okay, this is a safe space for me to work with. I shouldn't limit myself because, you know, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it really helped me just be open to sounds that I was feeling like it's not me. I don't want to do that. And it really, I lessened everything that I thought I was doing for a better path. And yeah, it's just like I had to do that in order to. It really took me a while.
Lots of life lessons.
It's a lot of
during this
life
process.
lesson, and it was so scary, but you know, everything's worth it. And I obviously still am in like a process of like learning so many new things. And, you know, I read books and I go on a lot of walks. And I recently just went to San Francisco, and I booked a flight an hour before the departure.
Oh my gosh.
And a lot of people were like, "You're crazy." But I knew
That's
at that
nasty.
moment, that's nasty. That's nasty. So I was like, I need to do something nasty to my mind, to whatever experience. And that was one of them. I just needed a little, you know, push.
Yeah.
Yeah, like putting myself on the edge.
Yeah.
To feel something. And there's something so beautiful about being able to feel and being able to cry over someone. That just shows there's people in your life that you cry over. And that's so beautiful. And I always felt like I was alone, but it's because I was putting this shield, you know, that just doesn't get anywhere. So the more people I let in, the more life and the more sound and the more color in your life. And I thought it was really, really cool.
Like I said, I'm excited to see how much this music evolves, and you know, I'm ready for, you know, bodies of work from you, just because I do see these kind of storylines being very cool to kind of listen to and experience, and I feel like you're going to take us into these worlds when we listen to your music and your videos as well. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm super excited to have met you, and definitely looking forward to more material from you. But you guys be sure to check out Kyra. A new single is out now. You know, thanks for watching here on Front Row Live.
Thank you so much for having me.